Welcome to Becoming Parents podcast. I'm your host, Jen Taylor Campbell. I'm a birth and bereavement doula, as well as an adoption and surrogacy doula. Doula means woman who serves. And although I love happy births, adoptions, and surrogacy, the pro bono part of my business is in bereavement. I'm here to help you. I'm also mom of 18, yes, 18 children, with over 30 years experience in the trenches as a mom myself. We have a huge blended family, and I've also experienced the loss of our adult son. Remember, give a shout out to those brave enough to share their stories on how they have become parents. Let's dive in. Welcome to Becoming Parents. I'm so excited today. I have John Brewer on. John, how are you today?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. You are like the most mellow guest I have ever had on the show, which is
Well, yeah.
great.
Right now I am. Yeah.
It's pre-coffee. I'm
Yeah.
excited about this because we're going to weave through a lot of different things in your story. So you jump in and tell me about how you started with becoming parents. I know from your notes you should have had a second child by now.
I did. Yeah, actually, on the 10th. So we have a newborn now. So
Yay.
yeah, we got two under two, which is actually I'd have to say right now it's not as hard as I expected, but it's still, it has moments, but all in all, it's not that bad for right now anyway. Obviously things change, but yeah, I mean, I'd say mostly my story begins. I did grow up in a separated household where my parents divorced when I was going in third grade, and it was my dad. He was married before my mom, so I have two half sisters, and then I have one younger sister, and so I got three sisters, and uh, obviously, so I know a little bit of how it was before, they got divorced and then afterwards, but obviously the time before that, I was young, so that I don't really understand a lot that was going on. But at the same time, I do think that a lot of the parenting comes from knowing your parents and just which that's the funny thing about it. As I've become a parent, I realized that I didn't know everything that was going on as a child, and that's kind of part of how I try to parent now is there's some things that you do need to shield themselves from, and then there's other things that maybe you just got to be cognizant of like what they're picking up and how you're presenting yourself as parents and adults and things of that nature. But anyway, so I would say like for the most part, uh, learning how to parent, it started then because obviously once my parents got divorced, being in the third grade and kind of quote unquote the man of the house, there's a little bit of a different role that comes into play. Not to say that I did anything significant, more. It's just, a
Mhm.
different type of feel around the house. And then as I got older, actually I lost my dad in 2014, actually Christmas Eve. And
Oh,
that was another yeah, that was another big like shift in my life to where, now I had three sisters who didn't have their father. And there was a lot of stuff going on at the time. And so I really had to shift my focus on, kind of my dynamic in the family and things of that nature. And at that point in time, actually, my sisters, they all had, children of their own and were married and things of that nature. So they had their life, but at the same time, losing a father unexpectedly is definitely not something that anybody should go through. And then at the same time, it definitely creates a very dynamic shift in your life. And so that's when, that's another kind of big moment in my life to where I really had to start really thinking more about outside of myself as
yeah.
an individual and more so about my role in a family. And then eventually, and at the same time, you know, it's weird because once he passed, I saw myself really seeing his attributes in myself
Ah,
and really trying to 'cause, he passed away because he dealt with alcoholism, and so he kind of had I think we don't know for sure because we didn't do an autopsy, but pretty sure it's like liver failure and things of that nature. But and that's why my parents got divorced is because of, he had a hard time with drinking and things like that. And, um, but the thing about it is, actually when I was in high school, I started living with him more because you're a little bit more lenient than my mom. So I was able to like, go and come as I please and just have a little bit later curfew and things of that nature. And
Okay.
then as once I joined the military, he was actually near the base that I was at, so I was able to visit him on the weekends or whenever I wanted to. And so, in my adult life, I was starting to really understand like the stuff that my dad was going through because I kind of went through the same stuff and not alcoholism because I mean I drink but I never had that type of issue thankfully and
Mhm.
but what I found is that as I got older, I started to see more and more and more the difficulties that he was going through as an individual that would seep through as a father and as a husband. And then that's when I started really, really realizing that, there's more that goes along with your parents than you realize. And so that's why like when
Yeah.
I parent my children now, I definitely try to make sure that anything that I go through that doesn't have anything to do with them, it needs to be cut off right then and there and never really trickles down to them and then at the same time, just knowing that they are perceptive to children actually catch on to a lot of stuff, and so I try to make sure
Yeah.
that you know if they do try to if they do catch on the stuff, then maybe I try to in their understanding anyway that make it a little bit easier for them to know. But obviously, I have two under two, so
Yeah.
it's not that much, it's not like I'm sitting them down and having a talk, but at the same time, there's little subtle things that happen. And so I think all around before I became a parent, all those things came into play and they weren't maybe in the forefront of my mind, but they would obviously molded me to where I am now, to where, I have my children my own and they were always kind of a thought process that I had that when I became a parent, I made sure that they were apparent that it was a point of emphasis really.
I think it's one of those things. I know when I became a parent, I didn't consider, and you're considering this more on the front end. Like I'm still living my own story. I'm like a
Right.
daughter and a sister and a friend and a woman and a wife and a like you're all of these things, not just a mom. And that
Hmm.
you're creating the story of your life every single day while you're trying to mold the story of your kid's life and how sometimes that clashes for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. I'm glad that you're recognizing that early on. And I mean, even at kids at a young age, if there is alcoholism, if there is abuse, they're being raised in whatever environment that they're in. And so they're
Oh
going
yeah.
to, they become a product of their environment. I was a runner, my kids
Yeah.
ran with me, they kind of that sort of thing, but to shield them from that because you saw that growing up, that's amazing to do so early on, because you can't stop the story of your life from happening. It's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
crossover, that's awesome. And 2 under 2 is fun.
Yeah.
I think it's fun.
No, no, it is. It definitely. I mean, I'm glad we're well because obviously, I'm 36 right now. My wife is 2 years older than I am, so we're definitely once we got married, we knew that if we wanted a family, we would have to start pretty quickly, and so and I wouldn't. And that's the thing is, we both were career oriented, and so when we got married, we knew that it'd be just fine. Moving along as quickly as possible, just because. Uh, what I really found is that chaos is going to happen no matter what. So, and they actually say now that one is pretty difficult because you're the entertainment, and
Yeah.
then two is a little bit easier when they get to a point that they can entertain themselves. Obviously, we're not there yet, but it'll happen. And so, and then three is just by the time that happens, if it happens, my daughter, who's the oldest, she'll be old enough to where she can really start helping out around the house and stuff like that. So that it all kind of like I said, there's always going to be problems. It's just whether or
Yeah.
not it's a problem that you're really embracing or if it's something that you're trying to shoo away. So.
Yeah, I agree. I want to jump in. You mentioned being in the military. Your dad was in the military also.
Oh no, he lived close by to the base because
Okay,
I'm
close to the
from North
base.
Carolina. So when I was
Got it.
at Fort, when I was at Fort, it was Fort Bragg, now it's Fort
Yep.
Liberty. But when I was there, he was close by. Actually, most of my family was, but he was the closest during that
Got it.
time, just because he was about an hour away. And so yeah, and yeah, so I joined the military, and I knew when I was in the military that I didn't want to really settle down and have a family, just because the deployment cycles are pretty tough on family, and I knew just not even like that my kids would be going through it, is that I would be going through it, because I even have a little bit of separation anxiety when I leave for certain jobs, just for like a night or two, to where I really, not saying that I think something bad's going to happen or something like that, but at the same time, it's still like, I get a little bit anxious when I'm away from my family and things like that. And so I knew in the military I didn't want to put myself in that situation. So I decided to hold off on all that. And then actually, it wasn't until when I met my wife, I knew right pretty quickly that she was the one. And so I decided, and my contract was a year out, so I'll be able to leave active duty within a year. So I decided we did long distance because she was here in Maryland and I was in North Carolina. And then once I got out, I joined the National Guard here in Maryland, and then that's when we got married and then started a family. So everything worked out to where I never had to deploy with a family. And I know a lot of people do it, and it works out just well. Well, statistically, obviously, there's a lot of divorce in the military. Well, there's a
Yeah.
lot of divorce everywhere, I guess. And but deployments don't help it, and so you really have to be on top of things when you deploy with a family. Like, communication has to be top notch, systems have to be in place, and things of that nature. And doable. It's just very difficult. And so yeah, once I got out and joined the National Guard, which I wasn't going to deploy there, that's when we started our
Right.
family. And then uh, now, like I said, two under two, and I'm able to, actually, this past 3 years, I've been kind of one writing the book, going back to school, and things of that nature. So I've been at home more than anything else, and so I've kind of been playing that stay-at-home dad role, where my wife has been more the breadwinner. And so yeah, it's been a very I think my experience on everything is a little bit more unique, just because a lot of dads. I mean, I think it's more prevalent now, but obviously
Yeah.
the stereotypically the dad would be working and the mom would stay home and things like that. But I've had a very unique experience when it comes to that.
I think that's amazing and supportive and fantastic. And I'm glad that it's happening more, just because sometimes it's not the right
Yeah,
decision for the man to work and the woman to stay home. It's not
yeah,
the right dynamic. So I'm glad that has shifted. And I love seeing dads more involved. I do want to back up though. You spent over 10
mhm,
years in the Army Special Forces, and I want to thank you for your
right.
service.
Oh, no problem.
I was Air Force dependent. Yes, deployments half the year he was gone, and we're not married anymore. So, but I loved being in the military. I have to say, I love being a military dependent, and
Gotcha.
I do know how
Yeah.
challenging it is with or without a family. So, thank you for that. Thank you for your service.
Hmm. Oh, no problem.
Oh, no problem. It's no big deal. I was just
Yeah.
Army Special
Yeah.
Forces.
Well, and that's the thing. My wife always not gets on me, but she laughs when I have that response, and really have that response because it was a job, I got paid for it, and so it's not like if it was a volunteer service and I never got paid, and they put me in these bad situations, that'd be one thing. But I mean, I got compensated, so it definitely, and I enjoyed it actually. I enjoyed the deployments, I enjoyed training, I enjoyed all that, and so it wasn't really. I actually tell people the whole time that I was doing it, I never felt like I had a job. It was just something that I did. Like I showed
Mm,
up for it, and then I got paid for it, and that's just what it was. And so that's why, I know a lot of people, whether it's military or not, they get in these jobs, and it's a grinding, sort of lifestyle, to where they're just like, man, I don't want to go to work. And maybe I'm not a morning person, so I had mornings to where I didn't want to wake up just because I was tired. But I never had mornings that I dreaded going to work just because it was work. I actually enjoyed what I did. So that's why, I mean, that's truly why I have that response. It's just because I didn't feel any. I mean, I'm not saying the military is fun, but it definitely, it was the type of hardship that I can deal with, so to speak. So
I just
that's
think
why.
it's not easy. The military isn't always easy, and special forces takes a unique breed of personality. And so I think it's amazing that you did it. And then I love that you really wanted to do that and you were conscious of how difficult it would be on a family, especially special forces, knowing that you were gone in that situation would have been different, or there could have been more of a concern because the danger was potentially higher. I mean, I get that. That
Yeah.
was very conscious. You've made some really very conscious decisions on the front end instead of like, oops, like I'm married and I'm in special forces and it's really hard on my family, or I've had kids and I'm not around.
Yeah.
Like you're making them very early. I
Yeah.
think that that's amazing. So you were in special forces, but that ties into your book. And you mentioned your book and it's behind you, and I pre-ordered it. So
Oh, you're
I
good. Oh,
got
thank you.
your book. Yep.
Yeah.
Um, I try to order every time somebody, a guest has a book, I try to order it. So, but I'm excited about this. I pre-ordered it, so I won't get it yet, but this is very exciting. So now segue in, I know you had a 1-year-old. Is she almost a year and a half now?
She's going to be 2 Thursday, actually. So
Okay,
her
so your
birthday
kids
is
are
this week.
just almost 2 years apart. Okay. So,
Mhm.
I know, like, we have that timeline. The military, you were completely out of the military in February of 2023. So, when did the
Mhm.
book happen and how did the book happen? How did those conversations come up?
Yeah. So actually, at that point in time, I wanted to, because I do have a startup too. Obviously, the book falls under the startup. It's more so, the startup is about like self-defense consulting and things of that nature. But I wanted something to launch it, and what it was at first is I was thinking about doing, they have those online courses you can subscribe to, and I was thinking about creating a course and putting it online that people can kind of just watch and go through. But then I realized how much involved, with production and the
Yeah.
video stuff and all that, and which I'm not there yet, and I would have to pay for someone to do it. And so it was just easier to write a book. And my granddad actually, he was a pastor and he wrote a couple books. And so, not saying that I'm a writer or anything like that, but it felt right to write the book at that particular point in time. And and so yeah, that's how it kind of initiated. It's just one day I was on the edge, and then one day, that's normally how my decisions go. I'm it teeter and totters, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, I'm just going to do it, and so I did it. And then I started writing it, and so it initially was supposed to be just a straight up like self-defense book to where it doesn't go into it, and it wouldn't anyway, because I do think that physical techniques should be taught in person, because there's no way that you'll be able to understand hand-to-hand stuff or firearms training and things of that nature from a book. I mean, maybe there's some people that can learn like that, but I know the way I learn and things of that nature, it's better in person. And so what ended up happening, I was writing the book that way, but then as I was writing it, I was really putting in kind of my 2 cents when it comes to mindsets and confidence and empowerment and things of that nature. And so it really turned into like a self-development book, which I do think that self-defense is kind of that self-development. I go off the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then obviously I think that each need when it's fulfilled anyway, the skills that fulfill it are kind of transferable skills, and they help you out with the next level and as you go all the way up until your self-actualization. So that's kind of how I treated it, is that every time you kind of put this layer of self-defense on there, that's another skill that you're learning that's transferable to other parts of your life. And so it really became
Right.
like a self-help, self-developmental book, and that's how I market it now. And so, but yeah, so and then as I was writing it, obviously being a new father, a lot of my parental kind of mindsets were starting to push in it. That's why, part of the subtitle is to protect your loved ones, because that's definitely a big thing. And self-defense, although it has self, it's defense of other people as well. I don't think self-defense is just, your individual as a person. And
Right.
so, it really, I wanted to put in those concepts of how to protect others, especially when you're responsible for them and things of that nature. And so that's how, the book got started that way. I wrote it, um, I mean, it probably took me 6 months, and then really it's been kind of the marketing and getting it, the production aspect of it, that's taken a
Right.
little bit longer, just because I actually did buy into a company that helps me out with that, And actually, I'm not going to blame them. I'm going to blame myself because I went through three or four rounds of developmental editing, or yeah, editing, and just because I wanted to make sure that it's not, everybody says done is better than perfect, and it is. But at the same time, I definitely, knowing that this is such a sensitive topic, I wanted to make sure that everything was not that it sounds great or anything like that, but at least people comprehend it. Because what's the point of me writing a book if no one understands the concepts? And it's very conceptual, so that's why I had to make sure that it was easy to understand, and that people that didn't have any type of background in this type of subject matter would be able to pick it up and easily digest it within a reading or two.
I completely understand the writing and how it morphs into something different. I'm a published author also, and also the editing, because you're always, I swear, no matter how many people go through it, there's always going to be a typo. There's like, I don't know
Oh yeah,
how,
yeah,
but it still happens, and
yeah,
trying to get that great. I like how it morphed for you through just writing it and then through becoming a parent. And I agree. I don't think self-defense is
hmm,
just you. I have my CCW, and you go through a lot of training, or you should go through a lot of training, to
hmm,
get your CCW and to maintain it.
yeah,
And the whole point of having that is that nobody else ever knows. And hopefully nobody else ever will know, because you never have to use
yeah.
it. But knowing how to use it and when to use it and and all of that stuff. I mean, I'm guessing you go through a lot of that. The title of your book, though, um, it's not just the physical aspect of it. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, no, it's so yeah. Fight for your best life is the main title, and at first I was going to, it's going to be titled "Fight for Your Life," and "your" was going to be emphasized, but my coach, he wanted to put the best in there to really bring it home. That's really truly what it is, because the first two sections of the book deal with awareness and analytical processes. The first section is internal awareness and understanding yourself as a person, and then the second section is more about external factors that might deal with self-defense, scenarios and things of that nature. And so, you know, being there's five sections, so that's 2 out of 5 of going, with concerning an analytical process and mindsets and conceptions that need to be understood before we even jump into the preparing and prevention and things of that nature. And so that's why, and it truly is because I want everything to align for the individual and that family. Like you said, you have your concealed carry. So, if someone doesn't like firearms, I'm not going to go tell them to buy a firearm and start using it
Right.
as part of their self-defense plan, because people, one, we only do what we're interested in, one, for one thing, or pay attention to it. So if I go tell you to do that, you're probably never going to use it anyway, even if you did buy it. And then it's just another useless tool that you happen to have around your house. Not to mention dangerous now that no one
Right.
knows how
Correct.
to use it. But and so that's why, like, I want people to understand themselves, so that they can better align their goals when it comes to self-defense, and then also beyond, obviously, because it all kind of aligns. And it kind of goes back to kind of my mindset of, how I was telling you in the beginning, how before I even started my family, I kind of already had a mindset of how I would be as a father, and this is more so how it would be in the book, to where you already have that mindset of how you would start conducting, not conducting, but really planning and preparing for self defense. And I don't think you should go in it just saying, "Oh, okay, well, I'm going to learn jujitsu, or I'm going to buy a shotgun or something like that." It should be
Right.
very focused on who you are as a person and what you have going on in your life, and then that all revolves around each other and meshes together, so it's seamless, and so it doesn't feel like it's anything outside of your normal. It's just it's just something that is another aspect of your life. Instead of putting something on it, it's just something that happens to fall into place seamlessly. So that's why I wanted this book to really have a self-developmental feel, because it truly is. Because self-defense isn't the goal, right? It's self-defense
Right.
is a necessity because of how the world is and how the world has always been. But at the same time, the true goal is to reach, self-actualization, your purpose, being able to fulfill your goals, and that's the goal. And the just the means of it is the fact that we're saying, hey, you have to be safe, you have to be protected to be able to reach those goals, and that's why. I think the book is so important, and that's why I molded the book to be, or formed the book to be, more so around self-development than I did just purely self-defense, because it's more to it than that.
There's a lot more to it, and you're right. I mean, I might be comfortable with one thing and somebody else isn't, but it doesn't matter what tools you're using. One of the biggest issues is that you have to be comfortable with it, but you have to be aware. I
Mhm.
just think it's really fascinating and makes so much sense that you're diving in so much to personal development, really having people self-reflective on that. And I know that part of it you go through just like your awareness. I think we're not very aware as a society. We're very at
Mm.
to what is going on around us, and that
Yeah,
is
we're very
huge.
distracted.
Very
Yeah,
distracted. Yes.
yeah,
So I think those things are really important as reminders for people that if you don't even realize something's going on, it's over before it began. So, um,
yeah.
I think that's fantastic. Just I'm really excited about the book. How has writing the book has I know your family and being a dad and the second baby coming and being married and the special forces, like there's this list of things that impacted the book. How much did the book impact the other direction? Did you learn a lot about yourself? I know it switched gears, or yeah, was there an
Yeah.
impact in the other
It
direction?
so it I mean, yes, I say actually I tell this to my wife all the time, to where I do think there is some type of therapy involved when
Yep.
writing down your thoughts. And so I'd say, for me personally, that's probably what it was, to where, because I do mention my dad a little bit, especially in the last section I deal with, the aftermath of a self-defense scenario. Now, obviously, I didn't lose him in that type of scenario, but I just talk about it from the aspect of losing someone unexpectedly, and just kind of give my example of it. And so as I'm uh, yeah, because that's the thing, is the first four sections are very, straight to the point. There's really no kind of, it's very tactical in a way, and there's not really a lot of emotion behind it. But obviously, section five being the aftermath and dealing with, PTSD, or dealing with trauma and things of that nature, I definitely had to kind of dive a little bit deeper in myself and really figure out, one, the way that I deal with trauma, and then two, my perspective on it, because that's really what books are about, right? There's tons of books out there that they all claim to be subject matter experts and things like that, and maybe they are, but truly what it is, it's just another perspective. And that's really what I think, like, instead of taking books for 100% truth, like a lot of people do, especially how us as a
Yeah.
society, we really like, oh, if it's in a book, especially like a history book, it's got to be true. And it's like, well, no, someone wrote that and they had biases and stuff like that. So
Right.
that's why books are just a perspective. And so my book is my perspective. And so when I was diving into section five, the aftermath, I really was having to, like, reach down and figure out, truly, the way I deal with trauma and how I look at it. And then that's
Mm.
just what I put on the paper. And that's kind of like, that was a little bit of self-reflection there, and a little bit, obviously, of, which, I mean, I don't, the first year after losing my dad, every day was a struggle, because I could remember exactly, all the details that was happening leading up to. And then eventually, this kind of fade away. And then that's when you realize that you're starting to really recover. And then, but, writing it through the book, um, not saying that I had like a PTSD moment or anything like that, but it's obviously a little emotional, because I'm really thinking about what was going on at the time. And so it's,
Yeah.
bringing back memories and things like that. And so, and then, but at the same time, I do think there was a little bit of an additional recovery, maybe something that I hadn't tapped into before, that I did this time, just by writing the book. So that, so there was a little bit of, because I talk about in the book, never, no one ever gets back to 100%.
Yeah.
That's not how it is because, loss is loss, and you're never going to recover that part of your life and your how your life was beforehand. But at the same time, there are ways to just progressively get better and better and better over time, whether it's a small step, big step, or whatever that looks like. And so I do think that the book did that for me when it came just giving me a little bit more recovery when it came to understanding the loss that I went through and how it impacted me, and then at the same time just understanding life and death in general, because it's definitely something that beyond our understanding, but it's an everyday process.
Yeah, I love that you pointed that out because you've been in situations that I haven't been in the military, and then situations that I have been in, losing someone unexpectedly. And those are very different things, you know. So whether it's what somebody's gone through and their upbringing, or and trauma looks different for everyone. I mean, it can be a car accident for one person that someone else doesn't think is that big of a deal. So I
Yeah,
love that you said that. I think writing is very cathartic and really can help people on their journey. So you did it through a book. You don't have to write a book to go through that, but definitely there's lots of science about being outside and writing things down for sure with an actual pen and
yeah,
paper. So I
yeah.
love that you brought that up. John, thank you so much for being on today. Congratulations on your little one who's less than a month old right now as we're
Thank you. Yeah.
recording. So good. And all of your contact information is below. The book is in the pre-release right now, but you can go on and grab a copy for yourself and get it as soon as it's released. So I'm encouraging people to do that. And I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, thank you for having me. Hopefully, you know, I, obviously this is probably a little outside of your normal interview, but I do think that every parent should really kind of understand that, well, one more so to relieve the anxiety, because that's one thing
Right.
I actually didn't bring up. The anxiety is always there as a parent, and
Right.
this is what this book is supposed to do, is to get you in a good spot so that you don't really have that anxiety and that fear anymore, and you're able to live your life and allow your children to live their life too, without a lot of just unnecessary kind of stress and things of that nature. So
I'm glad that you brought that up.
I hope a lot of parents, yeah, I hope a lot of parents are able to realize that's what the value in self defense. It's not just, obviously it's the tangible protection, but it's also the mindset of stress release and or relief and things of that nature. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.